Thinking about launching a podcast but overwhelmed by all the moving parts? At TurnKey Podcast Productions, we take the hassle out of podcasting so you can focus on the talk, not the tech. From concept to launch, guest booking to post-production, we handle everything. Need a strategy to grow your show and turn guests into clients? Yep, we do that too. DIY or done for you, we've got the solution that fits. Whether you're just getting started or ready to scale, TurnKey is your behind-the-scenes podcast team. TurnKey Podcast Productions. Your voice, your message, fully produced. Learn more at turnkeypodcast.com/contact. That's turnkeypodcast.com/contact.
Coming up today on the Nice Guys on Business.
For those who could achieve greatness and can to help other people, there's very little you can do unless you're ready for that moment. And that's what I want people to always understand, is that there is a way to orchestrate that. There's a way to not have it just be overnight success, quote, 10 years in the making, or it just was random. I met the right person. It's never that way.
Right.
It's a sequence of events you cannot visualize, you cannot master, but unless you're out there intentionally and purposely having built more of your reputation by helping others, it won't happen.
Dear Mr. Vernon, we accept the fact that we had to sacrifice a whole Saturday in detention for whatever it is we did wrong, but we think you're crazy to make us write an essay telling you who we think we are. You see us as you want to see us, in the simplest terms, in the most convenient definitions. But what we found out is that each one of us is the nice guys on business. Go from where you are now to where you could be. Get expert tips to grow your business, to be more productive and more efficient, whether you're trying to build influence, grow your community, or make it rain. Best-selling author of Nice Guys Finish First, Doug Sandler, can lead the way. The Nice Guys on Business is produced by TurnKey Podcast Productions. Now, here's your host, Doug Sandler.
All right, nice guy community. So check this out. David Homan is the founder and CEO of Orchestrated Connecting, a global community built on the power of authentic relationships. That's why he's here on the show today. Now, he also leads Orchestrated Opportunities, hosts the Orchestrated podcast. We're going to have to talk about that. I haven't seen a recent episode since 2020, so we're going to figure that out, David. Composes classical music and somehow still finds time to be a dad. I know he's a dad of two. I know Max, because he's a third grader, and I'm going to ask a lot of third grade questions. So from middle-class roots to some of the most private circles in the world, David proves that real connections done with purpose is the ultimate competitive advantage. David, I'm excited to chat with you. Welcome to the Nice Guys on Business podcast.
Thank you, Doug. I'm really enthused to be here and grateful for your time and everyone listening.
So let's talk about the important things in life. Max and your third grader. Let's talk about him for a second. What does he think that daddy does for a living?
You know, here's the thing that's amazing. I've somehow convinced my children that being a connector is a job. Everyone else goes, how do you connect? What do you do? It's just introductions. And I explain the entire global system I built. But my third grader goes, Daddy knows a lot of people who like him and they take his call. And honestly, that's what the world is. It's who will take time for you. And from that, everything else can come.
So your background in everything that I see is in music. So make the connection for me, music and meaningful relationships. I want to talk about that first, and then we'll talk about business too. But talk about music and meaningful relationships. Make that connection.
So my friend Paul years ago won the Pulitzer Prize in music. And I said, what happens now? And he goes, I'll still only be celebrated or known when I die, but at least I got tenure. And I always remember that because I live in this world where most people have never met a living composer. I've been composing since I was 12. I have over 208 works. You can ask Alexa or go on Spotify. You can find what I've created. Everyone hears that. They go, oh, it's so great he composes. No one takes the step to go, I'm going to listen. Mm-hmm. Now, people do. I mean, thousands of downloads, but there's no career. It's not a hobby. It's the in-between. It's a passion. And so I've always had that. That's my outlet. If you were to put me in front of a piano right now, I could play from my head something that I know or something that I make up instantly. Mm-hmm. I jumped into the world of arts from grad school at NYU after going to Bard College, which got me from Northern Florida, where I was a college professor's son, to what now is a world of 25 years in Manhattan. Mm-hmm. And As I eventually got better at what I did, I became a global CEO of a foundation. Everything in my world was relationships because that's how you raise money in philanthropy. It's how you have partnerships. It's how you get invited to the UN or all these other rooms. And I thought I did it really well until housing bubble recession hit, Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme hit, and my world imploded.
Mm.
And I realized I had to network differently. 5 years after looking at a different way to network, which is what my book, Orchestrating Connection, is also about, I realized that what I'd found was this way to find the resonance between people. And whether the currency was introducing your daughter focused in theater in New York to friends of mine focused in theater in New York, which is one hat I wear, to connecting people in sports to each other or family offices or startups and fintech, whatever it might be. If you love people and you learn what their passions are, you can actually orchestrate those connections. And by merging those two, I created this paradigm where I get to talk about my music all the time and no one listens still. But I at least get to talk about it and have videos while people are waiting on Zoom for me. People see me play my music online before I talk about the power of connection. The whole goal was just weave this beautiful way of understanding music into the way we can really weave meaningful relationships.
So what, and I appreciate the answer and the details, but what does the day to day look like for you? I understand as a master connector, as many folks are out there in the world, and I think I probably would lend myself more towards the amateur connector. I love making connections. I don't necessarily look to what, and I'm not saying you do, but I'm not necessarily looking to what do I get out of this connection that I'm making for anybody. I'm not looking where the dollar signs are, but I do know through experience, even as an amateur, that making connections oftentimes comes back to reward the connector because they're oftentimes looking for, hey, you're a podcast producer. Although we didn't call to talk about podcasting, maybe that's something that's in my future. But in your world, how does your day to day fit in, or what do you do day to day that actually can help make a living for you rather than just the connections, or maybe that's just it?
So I'm not so well off in life I can just make intros left and right. But I sort of want to requalify you. You've done how many shows now for your podcast?
We're almost at 1,700. Probably by the time this year is over, 1,700 will have hit.
And you call yourself an amateur connector.
I guess I say that not
with
tongue in cheek,
humility.
right? I say
You say
that
it with
because
humility, right? Because
I don't approach it trying to make the connection. Although I have to, when I see a perfect connection, I have to make the connection for myself.
and that is what makes somebody a connector or super connector. I set out with a rule system when I built my network, which is I wanted only action-oriented, natural givers that I would leave my children with.
Yes.
Everyone has great humility in the people they know. Then they go, yeah, I'll be in London next week meeting with Prince Harry. Somebody else goes, yeah, I just got this new person to join my friend's philanthropy. I go, who is it? And they name somebody that you would know by their first name alone in Hollywood. So quiet connection, introverts, empaths. This is what true connection is. It's not that splashy person being like, I just got invited to Richard Branson's yacht in Necker
Right.
Island.
Right.
That person sucks because they're trying to showboat.
Right.
They're trying to prove that their worth is who they're around. Real connections are where you go, yeah, I interviewed this guy 10 years ago. He's a phenomenal startup investor. He should meet my friend Tim. And that one intro over and over and over again is the power of connection. I built the system around it. So from running a nonprofit where it seemed antithetical, I was in the startup space and the refugee space and all these other spaces, 85% of the intros that came through that network were the fundraising for the global charity I ran.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When I ran a film company for Ray Dalio and his son Paul and Paul's wife Christina, I was able to build over 400 organic connections, not using their name, into wealth in Hollywood to position the films that they were working on. When I left that family office to build my own business 5 years ago, I realized that the process of getting everyone ready for that right moment, and not just the preparation, but then being able to make that intro, the intro that could change their life, access an opportunity, that was a business. So I built my referral business around the fact I take no referral fees and no commissions. What I do is I get hired on a structured retainer over several months or longer. to work with somebody to build the ecosystem with them, to bring them into mine with trust and to build more trust into theirs. That is actually why I partly paused my podcast from several years ago, because between getting divorced and then repositioning my life towards a startup and a book and everything else, I needed a podcast that now in its reconstituted form interviews well-known people about the moment, the introduction that changed their life, but how much effort and work they had to put in to get there. Because no one who's successful on this planet was handed something. They had to be ready. They couldn't sustain it unless they had something of worth. So my day to day, I have talked to 16 people today in 7 countries and a lot around the US. I had a 15-minute lunch break where I made a call to my mom to see how she's doing. Um, we have this podcast. I have a big interview and a keynote that's virtual after this, and then I'm going to dinner, and then I'll be done. Wednesdays for me are always long days. But in that, I heard my friend Nick talk about the work he's doing from being a very well-known celebrity influencer into an AI platform based on this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to connect him to 2 exited founders that have exited in social media, probably know him, but don't know he needs to talk to them now. I'm going to spend my day listening to what you and everyone else is doing and going, you know who you should be your next guest? These 2 people, but you know more than that, you should have your daughter meet several of my young Broadway producer friends and just get into those worlds and those parties in that world. So if she's going to make it, then the very least I could do as a favor back to you is connect her to my friend Megan, connect her to my friend Lisa. Let me give value. If something happens from it, honor that. Let me know. So my
Right.
day to day is that it's just giving, providing a system that gives the feedback back. Now I'm scaling a startup that's launching to market with $1 million raised over the last year and a half. I'm keynoting 3 conferences focused on former NFL players who are figuring out how to build relationship value into their worlds as their business owners. But it's all the same thing. How do I get out of the way and get you to the right person? How do I get them to think of it and me get out of the way so they meet the right person?
So let me play third grader for a second, and maybe Max will appreciate this question. It's
Sure.
Now, if we were riding in an elevator and it was an Empire State Building elevator, of course you would have had that amount of time, probably maybe a little bit less, to share what you just explained to the person standing next to you in the elevator. If they said, "Hey, David, what do you do?" But
Yeah.
let's say that we only had a sentence or 2 to describe what you do, so my audience can have a concrete walkaway. I always call it getting to know your mom, your market, your offer, and your message.
Same.
And so what do you tell somebody when they first ask, what do you do?
I say that I'm a connector who's built a system of trust to help people help other people.
And how can I enter that world of yours, David?
Depends. What are you passionate about and what type of help do you need?
Got
If you're
it.
courageous enough to tell me what you really need,
Right.
then I can pattern match and help you. The minute I do that, I go from random podcast guest to connector who's adding value. Once you take action in life and somebody feels heard, trust stays. Very few people do that. They tell you their pitch, they say what they're doing, the elevator opens, and they fail because the person in the elevator needed something themselves.
So
The minute you invert that, you get a much better ROI.
and it sounds like at some point music entered your life as a 12-year-old. Is that what you said? You kind of got
I've
passionate about
been
it?
banging on pots since I was 2, playing piano since I was 4.
Yeah.
I've been composing since I was 12. So my
Nice.
entire life has been music. It
Under,
never left me.
Understood that. I can recall taking my daughter to Miss Gina's music class at the age of 2 until she got to have a fun time in an orchestra that was run partly by a classical pianist, and then into Bobby McFerrin, and then into so many different steps along the way. So I 100% understand the passion from very early on. When did there's a certain brain that works towards the creative side of composition and composing music, and then there's the other side that works towards the business and entrepreneurship side of things. And I feel like My daughter has both of those things. She's exceptional as a business leader, but she's also extremely talented. Now, you have a lot of the same characteristics. I can even tell just in your inflection and the way that you present yourself that it's not just the passion to music, it's the passion to people as well. That's a really hard leap to make for many people that are either right-brained only or left-brained only. Do you feel like you fit well into, I'm going to say this, it's going to sound strange. Do you fit well into the world, or do you find you kind of have to crowbar yourself into the creatives when you're dealing with them, and then crowbar yourself into the left brain people in business because you're so much of a creative as well? What's your thought about that?
So it's a great question, Doug, and thank you for saying that I might be as great as your daughter is in this. I love how much you love her left and right with this. I mean, if you had met my parents, you'd see instantly. My dad was the Shakespearean scholar, academic director, writer, and actor. And my mom was this 4'11" little Jew from Miami who just like whispered and everyone listened. So I learned the in charge from her. I learned the presentation and the neuroticism of the rest from my dad.
Right.
Um, it's interesting because I didn't feel I fit in for a really long time. I always want to qualify that like this might be a polished version of myself now, speaking about this for a decade. All the other crap that everyone says is an accolade, and you go, "Well, I have a best-selling book, and then what?" Because no one tells you. Like my book's a USA Today bestseller. There's a bunch of boxes sitting under the piano in my apartment.
Right,
And
right.
when I go out as an author for some event to do a book signing, I drag an 80-pound suitcase with me.
Yeah,
Like, what is the glamour of this? Because success is all relative.
right.
Um, I fit in one world. I fit in the world of people who are curious and have empathy and vulnerability.
Yeah.
If you're not that, I don't fit in either side. If somebody's going to sit there and talk about endless theater and not ask me who I am, then they're going to miss the fact that I chair the Arthur Miller Foundation
Yeah.
and that Rebecca Miller asked me to chair it when she stepped down. And our advisory list is the A list of Hollywood, which gives me access to everyone people would know by their first name. But my value is my mission with hers, which is her dad was a public school, high school graduate, as was Lin Manuel, and most aren't because
Mm,
theater isn't accessible to most people in the city of theater.
yeah.
So I fit into both because I had to learn all the languages of both, and then I had to figure out how to co-opt the language I wanted to speak, which is a language of being curious and having curiosity put back into my world, being not only having empathy, but being courageous enough to be vulnerable and to stop not caring what people thought of me, which I cared about for a long time. And when I started to do that really well, I built bridges in the world of family offices and billionaires in Hollywood and Bollywood with people who I'm watching my kid's soccer game
Hmm.
with people who, take what I think is one of the most noble professions on the planet, which is what my father was, which is being a teacher, and just talk to them about their students. You can fit in anywhere if you're curious. You fit in nowhere if you think you have to fit to what you care about.
Mm. What's your outlet for your creative side? I was watching some videos where you're doing some performing. Is that your outlet, or do you not care if you're in front of an audience? I'm not saying from an ego perspective, but sometimes there's a lot of satisfaction a lot of self-worth that you get from that one gets from, like, I love my podcast, not just because I get to meet these great people, but I get to get emails from people all over the world that have interesting things to say about my podcast, good, bad, or indifferent. I don't care. I just like to hear that somebody's listening to my podcast. What's your creative outlet?
I've been steadily composing for a long time. I actually have a retrospective of three of my ballet works premiering in Vero Beach, Florida, with their ballet company, which is a hybrid with a lot of Miami ballet dancers this March. Every year, I try to create one thing I would view as substantial as a
Hmm.
musician. Oftentimes lately, it's been a commission. Sometimes it's just me playing a piece and recording it.
Hmm.
But I've been fortunate that most of the work I've done has been in a collaboration with somebody else. When I went through the stint of, oh yeah, Instagram will help me as I promote my book, which turned out to not be true. I
Right.
recorded a whole bunch of improvs on the Connection Orchestrator hashtag, and thousands of people listened. That was it. They didn't tell me, but they listened.
Right.
So I try to maintain that creativity in everything I do. Now I'm working on a movie about a composer who loses his mind to Alzheimer's disease. So I keep something creatively every year, but it's not how you pay the bills. But I'm still doing it. At some point, maybe when I'm 60, I'll win a Pulitzer Prize. And then maybe when I'm dead, I'll maybe get tenure somewhere. Like you never know.
When I first started doing some research on you when we booked this, and I can't remember how long ago that we booked it, maybe at beginning of January or something like that. I started looking up, how do you not how do you, but how does one communicate with an audience effectively and and efficiently if they are presenting to them? And I couldn't think of a better opportunity to do that than through music. I don't know this to be factual, but I'm going to ask you, is
Sure.
music something that you do in your when do you have a keyboard? Do you have a piano in front of you when you're in front of a crowd talking to them and teaching life lessons and stories and valuable tools along the way as you're playing? Or is that just something I have in my mind as I think this would be a really good thing for David to do, but I don't know if he does it?
So I've done it with several events, and often events that I go to, I will play piano. Since the book, that transition of what do you do, I've been working more on public speaking. And with that, because I can literally be in front of a piano, talk to an audience, get a sense of the mood, and then improvise,
Correct.
my hope is to do like the first TED or TEDx talk where I do my talk, but then I just play. And interweaving that in, I'm doing a couple keynotes this year where I've said, like, if there's a piano, I will also play.
Right.
So I'm going to weave it in more that you usually keep it separate because of logistics more than anything else. But I'm going to try to build a more intricate brand together now
Right.
because I've gotten to a point where I've been enough people and they think my music is really pretty and meaningful, or they cry
I
and they
bet.
listen to it.
I bet.
And if I'm talking about something, but now they feel moved, maybe they'll take more action to
That's
help
it. That's
other
it.
people.
And that's what I was thinking as I've seen performers perform and talk at the same time or perform and weave their music into the story or lessons that they are sharing. I spent 30 years as a live event entertainer as a DJ, not someone that's playing piano or guitar or anything like that. And I oftentimes thought with my experience as a professional speaker, I was thinking, this would be really good to intertwine my career as a DJ with my speaking business. I just never made the leap. And then, I got to be 60 and I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't feel like I don't
Well,
want to work
I
that hard.
I totally hear you. I got a buddy. His name is Mike Smith. He's one of the two founders of a circular economy fund called Regeneration.
Uh-huh.
So Mike is a savvy investor, incredible guy. And after he has his like AGM for the entire fund, the gloves come off and he DJs his own investor
Yeah,
party.
I love
And
it.
he's so good at it, right? He grew
Yeah,
up in
yeah.
Detroit. His grandparents were involved with Motown. Like it's
Yep,
just in his
yep,
blood.
yep.
And it's such a cool thing to see people who can do both. And I wouldn't downplay, right? Like the thing that a DJ can do better than a musician generally is read the resonance of the room, understand the vibrations, the timing, what needs to be faster, what needs to be slower. Oftentimes there's such an improvisational feel to it because you have to literally take an energy
Right,
and translate that energy into something that makes a difference between somebody that did a playlist and somebody that
right,
realized
right.
without people asking. So there's a huge art in that. And that how you read a room is what makes somebody a better speaker. It makes somebody a better business leader. And most people think because they sound great, the world cares.
Right.
What really makes sense is what happens when you stop talking and silence comes back at you. What fills that void? And that's what in all the events I run globally, that's what I strive for. How do you create that silence where then opportunity comes out from it?
Advance your career down the path. You're a young guy, 10, 15, 20 years. What do you see as you are looking back? What's the progression of your career look like? And I know it's hard, nowadays with technology advancing as quickly as it is, as AI advancing as quickly as it does. Sometimes it's hard just to look at 90 days from now. But I'm going to go old school and think about the questions that I was asked early as an applicant for a job. What do you hope to accomplish in the next 10, 20 years? What,
I feel like that kid who sort of like accidentally cheated on the test you're giving and didn't know because like I have a third grader, so I can try to talk to third graders.
Right.
I literally rewrite my obituary every 5 years.
Oh my gosh, that's
So
incredible.
so my father just passed. He passed about 6 weeks ago,
Oh, I'm sorry.
and it was a hard journey, but 87, like full life. And we always said like, what do you want on your tombstone? Even though we actually want to be cremated, so we put it on a little box.
Right.
And, Princeton, Harvard trained Shakespearean scholar, 27 books to his name. And what was he wanted as the summation of his life? This phrase: he meant well.
Nice.
So if everything happens right, I want to change the way we connect authentically. I don't want a world of cold calls or people just wasting my time with people who need something from me.
Yeah.
I don't want a world where takers can prevail and people can be like, hey, I heard what you're doing. Help me for no reason. I want a world where the value of community is more purposeful and intentional. And what I'm doing for that, I believe, is the greatest thing I know how to do, which is if I do this right, within 15, 20 years, I built the largest private community around authentic connection. It sits as a network in every community, and everyone who goes, yeah, I'm an amateur connector. I've only interviewed 1,700 people and talked to 30,000 more and DJ'd in front of crowds for 20 years around that. Like, it's like, I want that humility to be something that everyone goes, oh my God, Doug, the people you've interviewed, the insights you've given, I'm so grateful. And you go, you need to meet Tim, you need to meet Linda, you need to meet Kwaku. Like, I need a world where that currency is based on trust.
Yeah.
And if I do it right, maybe the thought leadership gets me there. Maybe everyone listening to this podcast goes, aha, this was the one. We haven't somebody had like this. We're going to help him get there. I'm also building a startup to systematize it. It's called SOAR Connect. SOAR stands for Strength of Authentic Relationships. I'm tired of some tech telling me who I should meet that's wrong. I want to give who I know to some tech company. So I built the opposite. I've raised a decent amount now, especially in this market, 1,000,001 and counting, because I want to change the way that we look at who we know and the value of that. If I've done that right, then I've done all that while picking my kids up from school,
You
while
know, as you,
showing up for my dad's, like the way my dad did for my kids' softball, volleyball, basketball games, by never giving up my artistry, being a great partner, being a great son. And I don't want to compromise on that. It makes me overwhelmingly busy. But if I can help you, you can help somebody I know, and that helps somebody that somebody listening knows. And that cycle makes us more generous and actionable. Then we stop these cycles of honestly a bunch of people who can, because of the reputation of their wealth, take from people and get
right.
away with it.
Well, I hear genuinely, I hear your passion in what you do. It's refreshing when you don't have someone that's across the screen, in this case, across the table in many cases as well, and nothing wrong with people that are chasing a dollar, but chasing the dollar oftentimes leads to a non-satisfied world or an unsatisfactory outcome when it comes to what do you want to be when you grow up. I always, it's funny that your dad had that on his headstone. Mine has always been, he made me laugh. I mean, it's a pretty easy, it's just
I
a
love
real,
that.
pretty short little phrase. And I have said that many, many times. And I'm a member of the tribe also. I know they discourage you from being cremated as opposed to being buried, but that's what I want on the urn. I want to be cremated. I want to have that little plaque right on the urn that says, he made me laugh. So I do feel the passion in what you are, what you're sharing, and I so appreciate you doing that. How do you take someone, and maybe you don't, but maybe this is just a good point of thought between the two of us. How do you take someone that is chasing the dollar, and you help them get their head on straight if they want to get their head on straight and they're looking for help? What's like a first step that you take with somebody that is trying to just get out of their own way of just filling a bank account?
You know, most people make that action out of desperation, out of need, because they believe that what they need is more important than somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
So the first step is to get them to understand there's many people who all have it worse. And if you can get somebody to have that humanity reflected back, they will stop that chase and pause to realize, like somebody's a founder and they're raising money for their startup and they left their six-figure job at Deloitte to do it. They still left a six-figure job, and 99% of the country could never make that much money.
Right, right.
They got a couple of friends who have sold companies that are going to invest in them. How many people have that? How many founders from Nairobi have that?
Right.
And so you have to get somebody to understand that like the way they see their world has to be less egocentric. And if you think they can get there, then work to help them. And the 5 principles of my book in quick order were: be curious, be vulnerable, make your network diverse, act with generosity, and honor people with gratitude.
Oh, man.
If you take that system,
great things.
nothing nouveau, but the system of it, I also then would tell people why. So in my mid 40s, I launched a startup. I spent a decade building a network of trust and giving. And in 7 weeks, I raised my friends and family rent. In 6 weeks, I'm probably going to close my pre-seed round. I already have over 15 groups I've been talking to about my actual seed round, which will be millions of dollars, because I built the trust first. So if you want opportunity in this world, don't go after it when you need it. Build opportunity for others and watch what happens when you do need it.
So
Because
true.
if somebody comes to you and says, hey, are you going to raise your next round for your startup? I'd love to help. And I said to 2 of my friends, I am actually. And they're like, well, can we talk to you about it? And I was like, no, I'm not ready yet. They're like, okay, well, when can we? And they were coming to me. In what world does a startup founder get an investor saying, when are you raising? This is the reason I try to convince everyone, Doug, of building the value first. Because I came from a family where I knew no one, but my dad worked with Mel Gibson on his Hamlet and taught Lynn Thigpen as in Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego. And a lot of the best people in football, from Emmitt Smith to Tim Tebow and all the rest, took his classes or around what he did. And I inherited none of that in my network. And then I walked into a room where I chaired this Arthur Miller Foundation. And I was like, oh my God, like I'm talking to Steven Spielberg and Tony Kushner, who and they're sitting saying to me, thank you so much for the work you do to help this foundation. It's so meaningful to us. And so you can invert it all if you have the right approach. Once people understand that's strategic and personally valuable, it's easier to get them to start to walk that path.
So those in our community, Nice Guy community, I'm going to put a link in the show notes so that you have access to David's book, Orchestrating Connection, How to Build Purposeful Community in a Tribal World. I'll make sure we put that link directly to his website, and you have your access to whether it's Amazon or any of the number of different places that the book is being sold. David, what am I not asking you that we want to make sure we get out to the community? I'm going to give you the chance for the final word here before we wrap up this episode.
I got to promote my startup and my book and my community and everything, but here's the thing I want people to know, and this is really what I've started to understand resonates the most. I've studied people who have become extraordinarily successful, Doug, and this is partly why I want to build this podcast of my own, the Orchestrated Podcast, back. I think we probably have 4 to 5 moments in our life that can change our life.
Mm-hmm.
And if we miss them, they don't come back. And I want to scare people into understanding that unless you are ready for that moment, you know how to ask for it, you don't even know you missed it. And that's why so many people, and this was like one of my favorite parts of the book, was people who rage against the dying of the night. People who live lives of quiet desperation. There's so many people that thought what they could have been. And it either turns them into an angry taker, or it turns them into something who is sad and lonely. In many cases, life gets in the way. Yeah. Your father's ill. You have to go take care of him. Your business falls apart, which is what happened to me this last fall. Like, these things all happen. But for those who could achieve greatness and can to help other people, there's very little you can do unless you're ready for that moment. And that's what I want people to always understand, is that there is a way to orchestrate that. There's a way to not have it just be overnight success, quote, 10 years in the making, or it just was random. I met the right person. It's never that way.
Right.
It's a sequence of events you cannot visualize, you cannot master, but unless you're out there intentionally and purposely having built more of your reputation by helping others, it won't happen.
Well said, David. So appreciate you being on the show. Thanks for sharing your expertise and your inspiration with our community. I'm excited to hear back from them, get feedback from them about not only the book, but about the episode as well, and and the things that you have to say. And I definitely have some connections that I want to have, that I want to make for you. I have several other podcasts in my network, including one called Lightbulb Moments, what the public only, if the public only knew, and several others that I want to get you in touch with as well, because I think that your message would resonate with business audiences, but all sorts of audiences, no matter what the subject matter. I think you would definitely have a message that transcends a lot of these categories as well. Thanks for being here on the show.
It's been a pleasure, Doug. Thank you.
Hey, Nice Guy community, never underestimate the power of nice. Again, special thanks to David Homan. All of his information right there in the show notes. Steve O'Brien, go ahead and take us out of here.
Thanks for listening to the Nice Guys on Business. Please go to patreon.com/niceguys. And for as little as $1 a month, you can help support this show. You remember that thing down in Panama, right? Come on. You owe them.